The Browns are on the field out in Berea, and Jarvis Landry doing what Jarvis Landry does. The one-handed catch from Baker Mayfield on the bullet. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sports4CLE. Hope your Thursday is off to a great start. Browns back out on the field in Berea. Day 2 of training camp. No fans yet. That's coming tomorrow. But it is great to have football back in Berea. Some old faces doing some familiar things, as we saw with Jarvis Landry. Some new faces getting down to business in Berea during training camp. Good look at Jadeveon Clowney working on that heavy bag. Let's welcome in the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff from WTAN 1100, 106.9 FM, Indians pre- and post-game. D-Man, I love seeing the Browns helmets back at work, getting ready for the NFL season.
Yes, it was great yesterday, except when Greedy Williams went to the locker room. Oh, no. Luckily, it was heat-related, so we didn't have to worry about the shoulder. But so many good signs, and, you know, starting with OBJ coming back and looking as good as he did. But the caution is always that every NFL team is optimistic at camp time. I think even Kevin Stefanski mentioned yesterday in his meeting with reporters. This time of year is designed for everybody to be enthusiastic and bullish on their teams. So, you know, you have to take that optimism with a grain of salt, but it's still great to see everybody out there.
So you mentioned Greedy Williams, so some news and notes to get everybody up to date. Brown's still on the field practicing, but as you mentioned, Greedy Williams left, heat-related, is back out practicing. Rashard Higgins rolled his ankle. He is not practicing today. Odell Beckham Jr. not practicing, was a scheduled day off. Demetric Felton working out with the wide receivers. That's a guy with all that versatility as well. And we also learned that Anthony Walker, the free agent linebacker that they signed, will be the defensive play caller, the green dot guy, as they say. John Johnson wore the green dot for the Rams and is very capable, but they're going with Anthony Walker. It just shows you they got guys that they're very comfortable with, that are kind of the football gym rats who want to get after it and play football.
There's no doubt. Either one of those guys, Johnson or Walker, could do that. Could be the green dot guy. And you know, I like the way the Browns have constructed this roster. No guarantees, of course. You only know what you accomplished so far. If you're the Browns, and last year there was an 11-victory team with a playoff berth. But it looks like a group that has a lot of athleticism and a lot of smarts, a lot of football smarts. And you would think if you're going to play for these Browns, you have to be smart because, you know, Andrew Berry and Paul DePodesta and Kevin Stefanski, the Ivy League trio, They certainly bring it when it comes to the intellect. So if you're going to play for those guys, for that paradigm, you've got to be smart.
The other thing is Odell Beckham Jr. continues. We saw some video. We've seen the reports. He looks like he's good to go. Full clearance, and the Browns are being smart by, okay, they had him out there yesterday. They're giving him today off. A normal day. It was planned. And I'm sure part of that is Kevin Stefanski wants him to be participating in training camp. Again, there won't be any pads, but when there are fans there, he wants the fans to be able to see Odell working out. And that would be the thought process, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was great to see Beckham out there doing Beckham things. And I think we take it for granted sometimes, Dave, how difficult it is to come back from significant injuries, even in the era of modern medicine, even in 21st century, when these doctors do incredible things with major surgeries and are able to fix players up so much better than they were, let's say, 30, 40 years ago. But even when you have the surgery done, you still have so much to do, and there's so much physical therapy involved. And credit to Beckham for getting back to where he is, which looks to be explosive, as soon as he did. I mean, you can never, in my mind, guarantee anybody's coming back from a major knee surgery, but Beckham has done an excellent job in the rehab.
Yeah, and we heard from him at his camp earlier in the week, and he sounds like he's in a good place as well. Well, Kevin Stefanski talked about the dynamic and the paradigm of having Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, how they push not only each other, but pretty much everybody, and he thinks that's a really good thing.
Two guys that came in great shape, good understanding what we're doing, and they're pushing each other. They're pushing the other receivers. We want practice to be competitive, even when you're on air, even when you're not going against the defense. We want to be competitive. We want to push each other. I was fortunate when I was with the Vikings to be around Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, and to see those guys push each other. I think that's a great message to the rest of the team. I think that's kind of what you have with our two guys that you mentioned. They push each other. You watch them move out at practice, and then even when they work off to the side, could be a special teams drill, but to see veterans go over there and get extra work, I think sends a great message to the rest of the team.
And again, it's Kevin Stefanski on Cleveland Browns Daily, the show that Cleveland Browns do. And, that's absolutely right. If you've got your two big-name guys leading the way, everybody, especially the young guys, are going to follow.
First of all, Dave, does anybody look better in the Brownie Elf cap than Kevin Stefanski? I mean, I think that's his go-to cap, and he loves it, and he looks great in it, by the way. But here's the thing about Beckham and Landry. I mean, they are leaders for sure, but you wouldn't care if they weren't leaders as long as they produced. So it helps to have both. It helps to have the leadership and the production. But in the minds of Landry, I won't say it, probably, but this could very well be their final year together. You don't know. I mean, I guess in the NFL, every year is a crapshoot. You never know from year to year. It truly is a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month proposition, let alone year-to-year. But given the contract situations and given how the game can be, we don't know if Landry and Beckham are going to continue to be teammates on the Browns beyond this year. So, maybe it's in the back of their minds they're saying, hey, let's make sure this is a memorable year.
I would agree. And the other thing that struck me when I was listening to Kevin Stefanski, the more he talks, the more I like him. And that's usually exactly the opposite for a coach. You usually kind of get to where it's like, well, here's what he's going to say. And some of his stuff, you know what he's going to say, but I at least understand where he's coming from.
He's an interesting cat. We were listening to his talk yesterday on WTAM on the show I had last night on 1100 AM, 106.9 FM. And I was talking to producer Frank, and I said, you know what? And he and I both said Belichick. because we're not comparing Stefanski's credentials to Belichick, just the way he deals with the media insofar as he doesn't give you much. He's very tight-lipped about how he's polite and respectful and doesn't mumble, which is a lot different than Belichick, but he doesn't give you a whole lot. And we were listening to the reporters yesterday. We love our Browns media out there. They were trying to get at Stefanski 3-4 different ways on a particular subject, and he just kept going, nah, I'm not going to go. I mean, one of them was COVID, and he just kept saying, oh, no, not gonna go there, not going to go there, not going to go there. So he is fun to listen to, even if he doesn't give you much.
The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I don't get fined. We'll hear what he thinks about the Browns running back tandem. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns football, and Marshawn Lynch had a physical, aggressive running style. He was asked which running backs in the NFL he likes. Take a listen to who made his list.
Yeah, you know what? I like the way Nick Chubb. I like the way he run that thing. Derrick Henry, I like the way that, they put their body on some.
Those were the two.
Hear. What was the first name? I didn't hear.
Nick Chubb. Those were the two. We were talking about Goldfarb.
Yep.
We were talking about who's he going to say if I ask him this, and one of us said Nick Chubb, and the other said Derrick Henry. Of course,
yep.
Of course. Yes, this is.
But
not
I mean,
science.
it's a couple of them on there that I didn't see too. Kareem Hunt, that boy run that thing like a man, and he don't wear no gloves, so he gutter with it though. He don't do it with no gloves. He old school Pop Warner like.
Let's bring back in the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. And Dennis, Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, he invented it, and he likes the Browns running back combo. That's not a surprise.
Finally, something that Beast Mode and I have in common. We both like Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Yeah, Beast Mode is a character for sure. But listen, I mean, Nick Chubb to me is a top 3, top 2 running. I prefer him as the best running back in the NFL. I know some people say Derrick Henry, but give me Chubb, and then as a Robin to his Batman, Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. And, the only thing, every time I see Marshawn Lynch, I think, I'm just here so I don't get fined at the Super Bowl.
Wait, Dave, Do you think that was the case in that interview? He's like, I'm just here because I'm going to get paid. That's it.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. All right.
Where were Skittles? I didn't see the Skittles.
Well, you couldn't see below the set. He's got a little table with the Skittles on him. All right. CBS Sports, 5 players who could break Eric Dickerson's rushing record was set in 1984, 2,105 yards. Number 1, Derrick Henry. Number 2, Dalvin Cook. Number 3, Nick Chubb. They also say Zeke Elliott and J.K. Dobbins. But 2,105 yards rushing record. What do you make of it?
I mean, it's a lot to ask, especially with this team. You know what I mean, Dave? Because you have so many weapons and there's only one ball. So I don't know. I think Nick Chubb can be a tremendously productive player without having to do that.
The flip side of it is, and we've talked about this on the show for a couple of times, anybody who's going to get that amount of carries to get that amount of yards there's going to be a toll on the body. And I think if you're Nick Chubb, I think you like being paired with Kareem Hunt because I think it extends your career and gets you another pretty big contract. You can do it for more years.
Agreed. And if Nick Chubb's the last guy you want to ask about that type of thing, because he'd be like, I just want to win. That's it. whatever it takes for us to win. If Nick Chubb were about chasing every last yard or chasing every last stat, he wouldn't have run out of bounds last year when he had an easy touchdown. He's such a team player that he thought about that, and he didn't want, what was it, Philly, I believe it was, to get the ball back.
Yep.
So Chubb's the consummate pro. And not to say that, if in the normal course of a season you're piling up yards and you're getting close, okay, fine. But I don't see that happening generically with the Browns.
Yeah, I would agree. They're going to give the ball to Kareem Hunt to do enough. NFL.com, candidates who could make the leap. So a guy that could ascend each AFC team. And this one, I've said before, Jedrick Wills is who they pick, NFL.com.
Yeah, you're very high on Jed Wills, Dave. You made that known, and I second the motion, if you will. I agree. I think he's a monster. I love that the Browns drafted him over some of the other tackle candidates the other year. So I can't wait to see Jed Wills grow into being a stud NFL offensive tackle.
Yeah, I just think Bill Callahan getting him to go through drills for an entire training camp preseason. I think that will be a big deal. Now on to something it's not a huge deal at this point, but I think it is. It's a little bit of a reason for concern. So JOK missing time, has to sit out because of the COVID restricted list. And Tony Fields hurts his other foot. So 2 of your young linebackers missing the beginning of training camp. How concerned?
I'm not all that concerned about JOK. I think he's going to be okay. I mean, the Joker should be fine. It's COVID related, and I don't see any problems there. But Dave, there was nothing beyond COVID with Joker, right?
The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, and I going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll hear from Baker Mayfield about offensive continuity for this season. And what does Dan Orlovsky think about 5.5 as the over-under on Odell Beckham Jr.'s touchdown catches this year? That's straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, try Seek and Help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, Go to try-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Welcome back to Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. Baker and Mayfield address the idea of continuity. So everybody's back pretty much from the offense. Coaches are the same. Systems the same as well on the offensive side of the ball. How big of a deal is it for Baker Mayfield?
It's pretty nice. Yeah, it's the first time in my career had all 11 starters come back, and obviously some key role players as well. Yeah, it's good to know, you know, having the same system and everything, but just building that chemistry, and as you know, the more reps we get, the more experience we have together. We're truly enjoying going through this process and working together.
And D-Man, there you hear it again, working. That is one of the buzzwords. Working. Comes from the coach, but I'll take it. It's good to hear.
Absolutely, Dave. Listen, I understand it as a number one overall pick in the draft, as Mayfield was in 2018. Tremendously high expectations. And, you know, to this point, he hasn't wowed you with his statistics. But I really like the maturation I've seen in Mayfield. At the very least, you know, the leader part of it, and the fact that he's clearly bought into the work, and he understands, you know, first one in, last one out, and he understands how valuable the offseason is. He looks in really good shape, and you know, so there's that part of the maturation. I'm expecting his production to continue to increase and continue to be better and better as he goes. But I do want to say this, though, about continuity. Plenty of other teams have continuity, too. Plenty of other teams have a bunch of good players back. And if I'm the Browns, I'm thinking, all right, this isn't happening. We're not playing this season in a vacuum. It's not just us. So we have to think, are we going to be better than the Ravens, for example? Are we going to be better than the Chiefs? Are we going to be better than the Bills? Those are the three that jump off the page to me in the AFC. Well, you know, you look at the Ravens. They've got plenty of guys back. You look at the Chiefs. I mean, I don't want to think about the guys they're coming back with, because we're going to see them in week one. And, you know, and then you also got the Bills. They've got plenty back. So there's no guarantee that just because you have continuity, you're going to be better than the next, you know, the team you're chasing.
Yeah, fair enough. But the one thing I would say is it gives Baker Mayfield the opportunity to take a step forward. That would be the main thing that I like about the continuity. It kind of puts him on at least an even playing field with what Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have had.
True. That's a great point, David. It's better to have continuity than not, as long as the continuity you have stems from quality players. I mean, you don't want to be bringing back junk for a second straight year. And clearly the Browns are not bringing back junk. They have quality all over the place. So that's the kind of continuity you want.
Fair enough. Very good point. All right. So Dan Orlovsky talked about.
Love Dan Orlovsky.
He's been he makes appearances very often on our show because he says really good stuff. So here's what he had to say about if he thought Odell Beckham Jr. would go over 5.5 touchdown catches this year.
More, and I'm actually going to say that Odell is going to have 6 touchdown catches of 25 yards or more. That is one thing this offense is lacking, is big chunk pass plays down the field. They were tied for New England last year in 25-yard catches at 25th in the NFL. OBJ gives them that explosive element in their pass game, especially in the play-action aspect. I expect a huge season out of Odell this year.
And D-Man, I'm right there with him. I expect the same.
I haven't looked at Vegas. If that's the Vegas number for Odell, 5.5, then I am getting in my family car and I'm driving to Presque Isle Downs and Casino in Erie, Pennsylvania, because Ohio doesn't legalize sports gambling yet. They're okay with name and likeness. Make sure you hurry up and get that thing all set, but we don't want to do anything about legalized sports gambling. But I'm driving to Presque Isle and I'm putting at least $10 on Beckham to go over 5.5. That's pretty much my high-end play at Presque Isle. But the point being, if Beckham doesn't do that, if he's in the 3s or 4s with his tight end or his receiving touchdowns, then that's a problem for Cleveland, because I know there are plenty of guys who could score. There are plenty of options, and being egalitarian can be a useful approach. But if Beckham is as good as he needs to be, if he's as healthy as he hopes to be, then he needs to be putting up big numbers, and part of those big numbers is certainly touchdowns. And that's the thing. He may not even be a super duper high yardage guy, but when you get into the red zone, he's exactly the type of player you want. So I want the yards and the touchdowns, but even if I don't get the monster yards, I expect touchdowns because he's so athletic. He has the incredible leaping ability, the great hands, the tiptoe in the corners. So that was what had been lacking from Beckham since he joined the Browns, is that end zone presence.
Yeah, I would agree. So what I would say is gas up the car. It's 90 east, 27 miles into Pennsylvania is where Presque Isle Downs and Casino is, because ESPN.com player prop bets. This is Caesar Sportsbook by William Hill. So it's not the same book. It's going to be pretty close, though.
Pretty close.
Over-under for Odell Beckham touchdowns, 5.5. Over-under for Baker Mayfield yards, 3,900.5. So what do you think? Over-under on Mayfield? And I know I already know you're over on Odell with 5.5.
All right. So 3,900 yards. Let me just say that 250 times 4. So 16 games would be 4,000 yards. There's a 17th game in there. I'm guessing that the Bake Show, if he's healthy, they're going to need him to play 17. He's going to be one of the few players. Quarterback is one of the few positions on the field where I don't think you automatically sub that guy out to give him a break in a 17-game season. So Mayfield going to be playing 17 games. Yes, he has running backs, but 3,900 feels a little low to me, especially when defenses are most likely going to dare the Bake Show to beat them because they're tired of getting beat by Chubb. So I'm going to say over on the 3,900. Again, as we're in Ohio, entertainment purposes only.
So I'm told they did the math in the control room. That would be 230 per game if he plays all 17. So, I think I'm going over on that too. All right, this one.
Dave, there were games last year where the Browns won, where we know Mayfield didn't have to do much. He didn't have to throw for even 200 yards.
Well, there were those
content with that.
There were those windy games too where you couldn't throw the ball. There were a couple of those.
Correct, but I think overall, if he plays 17 games, he's going over 4,000 yards.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, this one's kind of interesting. So it's quarterback tier rankings. This one done by the Athletic Mike Sando, and number 1, Aaron Rodgers, tied with Patrick Mahomes. Can't argue that. Brady is 3rd. Russell Wilson is 4th. Deshaun Watson is 5th. But Baker Mayfield is down at 17, which I think is a little bit low.
I mean, I don't know Mike Sando. I assume he's very good at what he does because he's with the Athletic. But to me, when I'm doing quarterback tiers, it's about, okay, what's the criteria? Because the one that I like to do is how am I going to rank quarterbacks according to 5 years? I look at a player and I say, in the next 5 years, which guy is going to get me the most victories and be the most productive if all the quarterbacks have the same talent at their disposal? Like the exact same roster, every quarterback, let's see who's the better one is. And when I do that, Mayfield sits around 11 to 13, no lower than 13.
So here, Derek Carr was...
If your threshold or if your criteria might be, okay, who's going to be the best next year, guaranteed next year, Tom Brady's up there, in other words, because for 5 years, even for Brady, I'm not thinking he's going to play till he's 48, 49. But if you're thinking, all right, this year coming up, and who's the best guy is, I still believe Mayfield is a top 12 to 13. I wouldn't put him down around 17.
So here's another one. Carr was 15, Roethlisberger was 16, Mayfield was 17. I don't understand how
who was 15?
Derek Carr. Yeah.
In any rankings I do with quarterbacks, I don't put Derek Carr ahead of Baker Mayfield.
And I don't think you can put Ben Roethlisberger anymore ahead of Baker Mayfield either. I really don't.
That's true. Does Sando have Burrow ahead of him too?
I believe so, yes.
I mean, because that's the thing. Nobody was a bigger fan of Joe Burrows than I was at LSU. I mean, starting at Ohio State, but then LSU. And when he came to Cincinnati, I was, unfortunate that he had to be in the same division. But the guy suffered a catastrophic leg injury. I mean, a very, very serious leg injury. Reconstructive surgery required. So I don't put Burrow ahead of a lot of guys until I see that Burrow is healthy and humming and definitely guaranteed to be as good as he once was. And once he does that, and for his sake, I hope he does. Once he does that, then I'll start moving him up the rankings. But for now, it's a show-me situation. A similar type of threshold with Carson Wentz. Not so much injuries with Wentz as it is production, though. Carson Wentz, way back in the day, really, really good. He wasn't very good the past couple of years. The Colts got him because he wasn't good enough to stay with the Eagles. I need to see Wentz prove it in Indianapolis before I put him high on any rankings.
Fair enough. Burrow was 14th in that list. The D-Man and I get to step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, who does Jeff Saturday, former NFL player, think is the team to beat in the AFC North? We'll hear that. We'll hear why when Sports4CLE continues. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We continue talking Browns football with the D-man Dennis Manoloff. So Jeff Saturday, former NFL offensive lineman on ESPN's Get Up, had this to say about the team to beat in the AFC North.
No, they're not the team to beat. And I think Greg Roman has to kind of prove that he can take this offense to the next level. What Sam just said is perfectly stated. They didn't have an offseason last year. This year, what kind of changes are they going to make to that offense? Greeny, here's the bottom line. They have to tie in the passing game to match this running game. They do not do a good job of blending what you call complementary football. When all the runs and you have a play-action pass off of that run. They have got to get to this. Listen, when you talk about Lamar Jackson right now, 6% of the time they're under center. Greg Roman's talked about getting him under center more often, and also it's just zone read and then drop back pass where everybody in the defensive backfield can bail. What they need to do is make all the pass game look exactly like that run game. I can equate this to when I was with Peyton Manning with the Indianapolis Colts early in my career. We ran stretch outside zone, Greeny, and I'm telling you, you could not tell by the way Peyton faked that ball whether it was going to be handed to Edgerrin Jones or whether he was going to pull it up and throw the ball deep. Those are the type of details Roman and Lamar Jackson have to concentrate on if they want to go to the next level. This team is legit, just like their offensive line is good, but they have got to produce in that passing game.
And the unstated there is he thought the Browns were the team to beat in the AFC North. D-Man, I know you're like pump the brakes and blocking your ears when you hear that kind of talk, but I will say that's laid out very eloquently, kind of the thinking that I had when I think the Browns are right there neck and neck with the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Jeff Saturday was saying about the Ravens, but I'm willing to give the Ravens the benefit of the doubt as the the kings of this division right now. That's all I'm saying. I believe the Browns are certainly capable of unseating the Baltimore Ravens atop the AFC North, but I've got to see it first before I automatically think, okay, they're guaranteed to be the best in the division.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. That's the Ravens are definitely a good team. So today, Browns out in Berea practicing without fans. Fans allowed in for the first time tomorrow to see training camp. Kevin Stefanski on Browns Daily talked about that and the atmosphere of training camp with the fans.
No doubt, Bo. I can't wait. And, I've heard the stories. I haven't experienced it yet. And what we're doing to have the fans out there and in a safe manner, I just think it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to hear them. I think there's a juice, obviously, that the fans bring to practice. I know our players are going to be excited about it. They enjoy to be cheered. Who doesn't? So I think it's a great energy for them. And I think back to, the fans that we did have in First Energy Stadium last year, how loud they were. I mean, that's our weapon when we're at home. That's a huge part of home field advantage. So to get to see a little bit of that tomorrow, I know I'm looking forward to it, and I'm very positive that our team is looking forward to it as well.
All right, D-Man, so for you, if you were a fan, go into training camp tomorrow, what are you looking at? What do you want to see? What intrigues you the most?
Well, first of all, Dave, I totally forgot Stefanski. This is year 2, and last year he didn't have fans at camp. So that is interesting, to say the least. But if I'm going out there, I'm, of course, going to the offense first. I want to see how Baker looks. How's the release? How's the velo? How's the accuracy? The usual checklist for the quarterbacks. And then I'll move to the wide receivers and, of course, look for 13 and see how Beckham's doing and Jarvis and see if Hollywood Higgins is back after rolling his ankle. I'm so confident in Nick Chubb that I have no concerns about him. I'd watch him, but it's like, I know he's going to be great. And then, on the defensive side, I'm going to look at the corners. I want to see how these corners are doing and how they're moving their feet and how they're covering guys. I'll be looking for Greedy Williams to do some things. And, other guys coming off injuries from last year.
All right, before I let you go, Indians did make a trade. They traded Cesar Hernandez to the White Sox for a 23-year-old left-handed pitcher, Connor Pickling, and left-handed pitcher, 23 years old. Pilkington has the lowest average against in Double-A South. Hitters batting just 173 against him. But again, you know, team option for Hernandez. Indians aren't going to really catch anybody in the wild card. When you look at this, just the whole trade.
Well, I'm getting destroyed on Twitter, Dave, because I dared suggest that it was a penny pinching move, that the Dolans were trying to save every last penny. Oh, you don't understand, Dennis. He was a terrible defensive player, and the Indians have a bevy of infield prospects who are just waiting to smash down the door in Cleveland, and he was holding up a spot. You're an idiot. You haven't done your research. You don't realize how this stuff works. Okay, fine. All I'm saying is I'm looking at a guy who had a club option for $6 million next year, a guy who's on pace to hit in the mid-20s for home runs. He has 18 before August. I'm trying to win in 2022, and I think Cesar Hernandez's bat is part of that equation. Do I expect him to be dramatically improved defensively next year? Not necessarily, but he can't be as bad as he's been this year, I don't think. But I love the bat. I think he was miscast as a leadoff batter. He's not over the hill in his early 30s. And what I've always heard from major league players is this: prospects are just that, prospects. They haven't done anything at the major league level. Otherwise, they wouldn't be called prospects, okay? And what do we hear in this town over and over and over again? Oh, here come the prospects. Here come the prospects. Here come the prospects. And how many times do we see a guy who's supposed to be awesome come up to this league and fail, all right? The other part of it is this. I've, again, on Twitter, just gotten lit up. Oh, you don't understand how many great middle infield prospects are waiting to play major league level. All right. Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. Did the Indians not have a bevy of middle infield prospects 12 months ago? Did they? I mean, or no, not 6 months ago.
Yeah.
7, 8 months ago. Whenever it came time to re-sign Cesar Hernandez. Remember that? He was a free agent, right? And they re-signed him. And they didn't just re-sign him, they signed him to a 1 year plus a club option for a total value of $11 million. $5 million guaranteed this year, $6 million in the club option next year. So my question is, why did the Indians waste their time this past offseason in re-signing Cesar Hernandez? If there were so many youngsters waiting to take his spot and they just had to play, why did you waste potentially $11 million on bringing him back?
Fair question. The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Dennis.
You got it, Dave.
All right, Dennis Manoloff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will check in with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Sports4CLE continues. We continue talking Browns football. Day 2 of training camp. Browns will allow fans in for the first time tomorrow. Kevin Stefanski talked about how he has seen Baker Mayfield communicating more with his wide receivers this season in training camp.
As a quarterback, now you have a firm grasp. Now you can go get the nuance with the receivers. You can rhythm up with the tight ends and talk through it. So I think that's where we are, and I think that's any good quarterback wants to hear from the receivers, wants to hear from the pass catchers and understand what they're seeing as they go out on their routes, and so that they're seeing the same thing. And I think that's a very natural thing to happen throughout the course of practice.
Let's welcome in Tim Bielik, reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Tim, it's kind of nice. I think that is a step towards kind of taking command of this offense for Baker Mayfield as well.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think, what we anticipated seeing throughout, going into the second season is, he doesn't have to think about what the play is. He doesn't have to get a play call and think, oh, what's Odell doing in this play? Oh, what's Jarvis doing? This is kind of that next level stuff that, we kind of talk about when now he's in his second year. Now he doesn't have to think about, what the plays are. He just knows them. Now we get into the nuances of those little important things. Stefanski, of course, talking about, how he kind of wants to know what the receiver's thinking on each particular play. Those little details are what take an offense another level. When the quarterback's not only thinking about what the play is, but where he wants to put the football, but how the receiver sees things, what they're seeing in different coverages, every little detail that he can kind of put in his head. He's like, okay, on this play, say Odell wants to do this, and this is where I should put the football. That's where he's expecting it. Those are the kind of things you can start to build upon when you're not learning new plays, when you're not learning new terminology, when you're not doing all these things that are just the fundamental concepts of putting an offense together. This is kind of why I say when you're learning a playbook, it's like algebra. In this case here, you're starting to get into pre-calculus when you're starting to learn more and more of the details to really take an offense to a different level.
Yeah, and Baker Mayfield admits he feels much, much more comfortable. He's more familiar with the offense, and the end result is he's expecting a lot from himself.
Here it's been, chemistry with these guys and a lot of the same faces, but we haven't had the same system the whole time. So I think now, I'm truly hoping to make a huge jump of, taking care of the ball and being efficient.
I mean, just looking at different QBs and researching them where they were from the third to fourth year. But one, like Drew Brees, I don't know if you ever noticed this, but in his third year, he had what you would probably call a bad year before his career took off. But do you feel like you reached a good place in your third year and you're in a much better place now, or is it way too say you're in a much better place as camp is just beginning?
I can play a whole lot better than last year. I know that. I'm trying to improve each year. And when it comes to looking at other guys in third to fourth years, I don't compare myself to anybody. I try and be the best version of me, and I think that's what we try and stress in this building is it matters what goes on. If you're getting better, the team's getting better, and we're pushing each other, and do your job first and foremost.
And Tim, the part I liked about that, didn't hesitate, I can play a lot better than last year.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to the things we said about Mayfield that, as good as he's been at times throughout his short NFL career, particularly the end of his rookie year, the end of 2020, he hasn't put it together for a complete season. He was great in the second half of this year, but was inconsistent throughout the first part of last year. I look at the Baltimore game, the game in Pittsburgh, those two games in particular, obviously those are situations where, you're still learning the offense probably. By the second half of the season, he looked like the guy who was the number one pick. Now the challenge for him is to put it all together. Can he put a complete season out there? Can he play 17 games as effectively as possible? That's where, you see the great quarterbacks really start to elevate, where, you maybe only have one bad game, because let's be real, these guys are human. They're going to have a bad game once in a while, but way more often than not, you see Aaron Rodgers have great games. Russell Wilson's going to have a great game. You don't wonder when they're going to have a big game. That's where I think the next step for Baker is to get to the point where way more often than not, he's playing effectively. He's having very good games, multiple touchdowns, very few interceptions, if any. That's the next step for him to really get where he and the Browns need to be.
The other thing that Baker Mayfield addressed is, he knows he has to be the leader. And because he understands the offense more, he's just more comfortable in that role right now.
Absolutely. I think, like I said, now going into the second training camp in this system and knowing the ins and outs and the little nuances that are so important, of being able to overemphasize those. And just because I might think that somebody knows the little details, over-communicate, because I think that's the most important part right now is, like I said, yeah, it's continuity. Everybody's saying same system, same people, but you have to emphasize those little details over and over. But I'm definitely a lot more comfortable to do that this year.
And Tim, again, the details matter. They usually add up to small things, add up to big things that add up to wins in football, usually.
Yeah, the NFL is all about details. It's the next level. It's the highest level of football when every little detail matters. And I kind of want to go back to something he said about over communicating. There's leadership seminars. I know I've been to one or two in my lifetime, and one of the things that I've heard that always sticks out with me is if you want guys to be 100%, you have to be about 120%. You have to give more than you expect from the other guys to get them to the level you want them to be. So Baker understands that, and I find that very interesting. That there's no such thing as over communicating. I don't think you want everybody to be on the same page. You want those details to be understood through every guy that comes in the huddle, comes off the sideline to get into the play, to understand exactly what they want to do. That's where you have everybody on the same page, because like I said, it's a details game in the NFL, and it's about communication. When you have those two things down, you can certainly do a lot of good things.
Yeah, and one thing that hasn't been questioned, Baker Mayfield is a leader. So Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will hear from Kevin Stefanski about his coaching staff and the work they want to put in for training camp. We'll also hear from John Johnson, one of the new Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. We continue talking Browns training camp tomorrow out in Berea. Fans allowed into training camp for the first time this season. Browns wrapping up the second of two closed practices today. Kevin Stefanski talked about his favorite word, work, and what he expects from his coaching staff as well.
When you're on campus, you're here to work, and that's what we're doing in the meeting rooms. And then out on the field, what I love to do as a head coach is I get to stand there and take it all in, and to see our coaches coach and to see them not waste any opportunity to go make a player better. That's so great for me to see from my vantage point.
And Tim, we've talked a little bit about messaging. The message from Kevin Stefanski is clear. It's about work. I mean, it's all over the building. You hear it from the players. You hear it from him. You probably can't say it enough.
Yeah, and I mean, just seeing some of the stuff that Myles Garrett was saying yesterday, what Jarvis Landry was saying yesterday, I think there's an understanding that Kevin Stefanski is, sending throughout the team, that, making the playoffs, winning a game in the playoffs, that's not the goal. The goal is to be the last one standing, to be one of the two teams, that's in Los Angeles for the Super Bowl, and to ultimately be the one holding the Vince Lombardi trophy. And until you get there, you have to keep working to get there. So he understands that process. He's certainly got the attention of the room. He's got the buy-in of everybody, from the coaches to the players. You just see it from the way they're working, the way they're talking. Actions speak louder than words, and he's clearly put his imprint on that. And based on the way, everybody talks about that, everybody reacts to that, the culture that's been building with the team for the past year and change, that he clearly has their attention and they're willing to follow him, which is a great sign for a football team.
Yeah, without question. And Coach of the Year in that crazy COVID year, trying to follow it up and get deeper in the playoffs. All right, key addition to the Browns, John Johnson, free agent signing, came over from the #1 ranked defense last year, the Los Angeles Rams. Now, Johnson talked about he's versatile. He can play all over the field, doesn't really have a favorite position. Also spoke about what he sees from this Browns defense.
Different game plan requires, to be in a different spot. So whatever it is for that week, I just want to study the film and put myself in the shoes of another guy playing in that spot and try to, do it better than he did. So I don't think it's one specific position, but I think, the matchups and wherever I fit best, I'm going to try to do it to the best of my ability.
John, we're here for some spring practices. I know it's the very beginning of training camp. But can you get a sense for how good this defense can be from being on the field with the guys?
I mean, the sky's the limit. Whatever we put in from now till week 1 is what it's going to be. So it starts, yesterday, and we're going to keep stacking the blocks on top of each other. But I think the sky's the limit. I've been on a pretty solid defense, and there's not too many differences. So I think the sky's the limit for us.
Again, John Johnson and Tim, news came out today that it will be Anthony Walker, the linebacker, who wears the green dot as the communications guy calling defensive signals. That's something that John Johnson did for that top-ranked defense for the Rams. But at the end of the day, the expectations that the defense have for themselves, probably the most important thing, and John Johnson's giving you a little glimpse of that.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the talent they've added on defense, not just John Johnson. They signed him, of course, his teammate from Los Angeles, Troy Hill. You draft Greg Newsome to be potential starting corner opposite Denzel Ward. You draft Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. We'll see him at some point next week when he comes off the reserve COVID-19 list. Anthony Walker, you just talked about how he's going to get the radio, is going to be calling the defensive signals. And, of course, Jadeveon Clowney. There's no question that the talent on this defense is night and day what it was a year ago. And the thing that stood out to me again is kind of what he said at the beginning, how the game plan is going to change. And I think that's where the Joe Woods defense is going to be very interesting to me. And the reason I say that is because we've seen how much the NFL has changed. It happened in college football a lot faster than it did the NFL, but the way it's changing where you're going to have to go up against a team that's going to run 4 receivers like the Bengals, or a team that's going to run down your throat or whatever, like the Ravens are going to. You have to be able to have personnel that can handle those different situations. So it's almost like a week-to-week game plan. And having guys with versatility like Johnson has, where he could play safety, he could play down the box, and a defensive coordinator in Woods who has said he wants to run all sorts of defenses up to 3 safeties in his starting lineup. You want that versatility because you're going to go up against something different every single week in this league. So to have a defense that it can adapt to all those different things, that is not necessarily beholden to one particular thing, and then has the personnel to play those areas, not just the personnel and numbers, but in quality as well, to do those things gives, I think, the best chance for success. So we'll see how it all comes together. Again, I'm not expecting them, in week 1, week 2 to become the 85 Bears by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a defense that should certainly get better as it goes along when Joe Woods really figures out what he's got on that side of the football.
Yeah, I agree with that. Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. As always, Tim, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
You got it. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you again tomorrow. We will wrap up the NBA draft. We'll tell you who the Cavs get at that 3rd pick. We'll also get a little bit of insight what they might do. We will also be joined by Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Fans back in Berea for training camp for the first time in a long, long time. We will see you again tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody.